The old hollow line was officially shut down in the autumn of 1963. The official reports cited economic downturn and the rise of the automobile. They tore up the grand old stations, brick by brick, ripped out the hand-painted signs that pointed to towns that were already starting to fade from memory. But they never touched the tracks.
Budget oversight, the paper said.
But the old-timers knew the truth. There are some things you don't disturb, some sleeping dogs you let lie. No one dared to touch those cold iron rails stretching like a scar across the landscape. They knew what still used the line when the sun went down. And every decade or so, someone claims they see it. The midnight train. The stories are always dismissed as local folklore. The ramblings of a drunkard or a teenager looking for a thrill, but the accounts are chillingly consistent. They say it's not a ghost train, not some spectral echo of a long-gone locomotive. No, the legend insists it's a real train, one that never stopped running, somehow slipping through the cracks of time, trapped in a reality that isn't quite ours. And the most unsettling detail, the one that makes the hair on your arm stand up, is that you don't hear a whistle as it approaches. You hear voices, soft at first, like the wind through the pines, then clearer, whispering your name, calling you home. I never believed a word of it, of course. Just a campfire story to scare the kids. Until I found myself here, walking the line, the crunch of gravel under my boots the only sound in the suffocating stillness. It was 11:59 p.m. I don't know why I came. It felt less like a decision and more like a summons. The air grew thick, heavy, pressing in on all sides. A dense, unnatural fog rolled in from nowhere, swallowing the moonlight whole. My small lantern barely cut through the gloom. Then, a low vibration started, a faint hum that traveled up from the soles of my feet and settled deep in my bones. The rails began to sing. A single golden light appeared in the distance, a pinprick in the oppressive dark. It didn't sway or flicker like a normal headlamp. It just grew, a steady, silent eye cutting through the fog. The shadows around me began to shift and writhe, twisting into impossible shapes. The humming intensified, but it wasn't the sound of an engine, not the familiar chug of a steam locomotive or the roar of a diesel. It was a deep, resonant rumble that felt organic, ancient. It was the sound of something breathing. As the train slid into view, silent as a phantom, I saw them. Faces. Dozens of them pressed against the pristine glass of the carriage windows. Some looked alive, their eyes wide with a kind of placid curiosity. Others didn't blink. Their gazes were fixed, empty, like porcelain dolls left out in the rain. The train glided to a halt directly in front of me, the air brakes hissing like a great serpent. A carriage door slid open with a whisper of oiled steel. The interior looked brand new, a perfect recreation of a 1950s passenger car, all polished wood and plush velvet seats. Faint jazz music, warped and distorted as if playing from a great distance, drifted out into the night. A man in a crisp, old-fashioned conductor's cap stepped out onto the gravel. He was ageless, his face unlined, but his eyes holding a weariness that spoke of centuries. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. He simply held out a single cardboard ticket. In elegant cursive script, my name was printed on it. And below my name, the date was tomorrow. I stared at the ticket, then at the open door, the strange, inviting music, the silent passengers. A part of me, a tired, lonely part, wanted to take it, to step aboard and see where the line went. But my feet felt rooted to the earth. A primal fear, cold and sharp, cut through the fog. I took a step back, shaking my head. The conductor's expression didn't change. He simply retracted his hand, gave a slow, deliberate nod, and stepped back inside. The door slid shut, and with that same impossible silence, the train began to pull away, its golden lights fading back into the fog. As the last carriage vanished into the night, a single collective whisper seemed to echo directly inside my mind. You missed your stop, but we'll be back. The walk home was a blur. I didn't sleep. I just waited for the sun, telling myself it was a dream, a hallucination brought on by solitude and local ghost stories. But this morning, it was waiting for me, tucked neatly into my mail slot, a crisp, cream-colored envelope with no stamp and no return address. And embossed on the front, in shining gold foil, was the very same logo I saw on the conductor's hat and the ticket. They say it's not a ghost train, but a train that never stopped running, trapped in a time that isn't ours. It's not an echo or a memory replaying on a loop. The legend insists it's something far more unsettling, a physical object, solid steel and wood, caught in a temporal snag, a splinter of a forgotten Tuesday in October, torn from the calendar and left to drift through the decades. It runs on a schedule that no longer exists, on a track that leads nowhere in our world. For its passengers, the journey is eternal. They say the people inside are not spirits of the dead. They are simply passengers, forever on their way home from the city or heading off to a new life. They read their newspapers, printed with headlines from a world that has long since vanished. They chat amongst themselves, their conversations lost to the strange silence that surrounds the train. Through the condensation on the windows, you can sometimes see their faces, pale and serene, completely unaware that their 5:30 commute has lasted over half a century. They are the living, trapped in a moving mausoleum, and their prison is time itself. Its arrival is never announced by a whistle. The old stories, the ones whispered by grandparents to wide-eyed children, are very clear on this point. A steam whistle is a warning, a sound that belongs to the world of the living. This train offers no such courtesy. Instead, the air grows cold, unnaturally still. The ambient noise of the night, the crickets, the wind in the trees, it all just stops. A profound, deafening silence descends upon the tracks, a vacuum waiting to be filled. And then, you feel it before you hear it. A low vibration in the soles of your feet, a deep hum that resonates in your chest. It's not the chugging of an engine, it's smoother, more organic, like a colossal beast breathing in its sleep. That's when the other sound begins. If you see it, you don't hear the whistle. You hear voices. They aren't coming from the carriages. They seem to emanate from the fog itself, from the very air around you. Faint whispers that curl around the edges of the silence. At first, they are indistinct, a chorus of forgotten conversations. But as the train draws near, the whispers coalesce. They find a focus. They find you. And they start calling your name. It's a sound that bypasses your ears and plants itself directly in your mind. A perfect imitation of a loved one, a childhood friend, a voice you trust implicitly, begging you to come closer, to step aboard, to join them. The old timers say to acknowledge the voice, to even whisper a reply, is to accept a ticket. A one-way fare into that lost moment in time from which no one has ever returned. I didn't believe it until I found myself here, 11:59 p.m. The air felt heavy. The fog rolled in from nowhere. Then the rails began to hum. It wasn't the sound of an engine. It was breathing. And then, faces pressed against the glass. Some looked alive. Others didn't blink. A man in a conductor's cap stepped out. He didn't speak, just held out a ticket. My name was printed on it, and the date was tomorrow. I didn't take the ticket. My hand trembled in the space between us, a chasm of indecision. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to turn my back on this impossible apparition and flee into the familiar darkness. But the warmth from the carriage was a siren's call, a promise of comfort. The conductor's eyes, devoid of emotion, held mine. He wasn't impatient. He seemed to have all the time in the world. The ticket he held was crisp, perfect. My name stared back at me, and beneath it, the date. Not today, but tomorrow. A journey I hadn't planned to a destination I couldn't know. It wasn't an invitation. It was a summons. A cold shudder finally broke the spell. I took a single step back, the crunch of gravel under my boot a definitive sound in the silence. The conductor's expression didn't change, but he gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. He retracted his hand, the ticket vanishing into his immaculate uniform. Without a word, he stepped back. The door didn't slam. It slid shut with a soft, pneumatic hiss, sealing the impossible world within. The train began to move, not with the groan of old machinery, but with a silent, seamless glide, as if pulled by an unseen, inexorable force. As it slid past, I saw the faces in the windows again, all turned towards me, a silent, unblinking jury. Men, women, a child with eyes far too old. They simply watched me, their faces pale masks in the golden light, their passage a silent judgment of my choice. The train gathered speed, its form dissolving into the oppressive fog until only its rear lights remained. Two crimson eyes staring back before they, too, were swallowed by the night. The humming of the rails faded, and a profound silence fell. It was in that void of sound that I heard it. Not a shout on the wind, but a whisper that bloomed directly inside my mind, intimate and cold. You missed your stop, but we'll be back. The air grew cold again, the false warmth of the train a mocking memory. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring into the fog, my heart hammering against my ribs. The walk home was a blur. Every rustle of leaves was a footstep, every shadow a waiting figure. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, watching the shadows dance on my ceiling, the whisper echoing in the quiet. By dawn, I'd almost convinced myself it was a waking nightmare, a trick of the fog and an overactive imagination. Then I went to the front door. This morning, it was waiting for me.